Welcome to the Holly Bridges podcast. My name is Holly.
Today we are talking about body psychology, autism, finding answers in the body. We are interviewing Danny Raede from the Asperger Experts in Seattle, and I'm pretty excited to be talking to him today. So welcome.
Hello.
Now.
So I'm going to totally do a shameless plug and say, look what I have.
Good work. Now you can see me, yes?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Like, cool. Oh, good. Sorry, I'm just getting the hang of it.
Yeah.
What a great book.
It is a great book. I tell people it's the only book on autism I recommend.
Oh, really?
Because most of the rest is like either just like a memoir, like Journal of Best Practices is like, it's a great story, but is actually that helpful in your everyday life? You know, so.
Thank you.
You are very, very welcome. Cool. You know, I can really count the number of people who sort of get the whole like vagus nerve autism thing on like one hand. So.
It's why I did it so simply, because it immediately made sense to me, but people don't get it. It's so hard to explain.
They don't get it at all. And then you're like, I mean, I'm doing a course on it, and the way I'm having to describe it is, okay, let's start from the beginning. You have a heartbeat, right? Your heart beats more than once. Yes, that's called a heart rate variability, is the variability between your heart rate. And then we go from there, and then the heart rate variability is a good way to measure vagal tone. Vagal tone is a measure of how strong your vagus nerve is, blah, blah, and step it out. And like, so.
I draw stick figures. So I've just been doing getting a workshop ready. So I have to draw, you know, like in the book, but different. Yeah. I've just worked out I'll send it to you, a better picture. So it's like a slide. So you have the social engagement system at the top and a mobilization at the bottom. And just trying to explain, you run up and down it, but how you interface that with, you have to get people to feel what it feels like, don't you? Like your face works when you're here, it doesn't work when you're here.
Really, it's, I mean, when I get people to understand, oh, like what I do is I just have people that just like to like allow and be for like 30 seconds and just stop fighting it. And like, then suddenly they're like, oh, the pain in my neck is getting lessened, or, oh, this is easier. I'm like, yeah. So now imagine that, but times like 1,000, and you got Asperger's.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you found a colossal difference in how you live in the world after working with the vagus yourself? Like, I know you work with other people, but I mean, it must have, you must be able to accommodate the world a whole lot better.
Yeah, it is literally night and day. Like, it's funny that I can hear a siren now. That's the perfect thing. I'm literally in the middle of downtown Seattle. Like, I am 3 blocks from the Space Needle and like 2 blocks from the water, right in the middle of downtown. And that means that I get city noise and homeless people and sirens and the whole 9 yards. And I would not have been able to handle that at all 2 years ago.
And when did you first find out about the Polyvagal Theory?
Oh, was this 2013? I read the review of it. I was just like, this makes so much sense. And I actually started to read the book and then read the simpler version of Peter Levine's work, which is references that, but it's like the less need to Google every other word version. And then it all clicked. And then, yeah. So from there, it was just like, wow, this makes sense. And then when you help people work on their vagal tone and increase it over time, it's this magical thing. Like, you know, the most profound time I would say I've noticed it in the last year was about a month ago. I unexpectedly had a kidney stone, which is very fun. But normally when you go through some large amount of medical distress, there's a huge amount of adrenaline and fear and anxiety on top of the actual stressor. I wasn't anxious or fearful at all. There was zero adrenaline. It was like, this is really painful, this hurts, but I'm not scared and I'm not anxious at all. And that's weird. And that's when I really noticed it, like, sort of like catching me and being like, hey, vagal brake, being engaged, and like, you're not going into fight or flight at all.
2 things. One, have you, this is a jump question. Have you noticed that your executive functioning has improved?
Yes.
Astronomically?
Exponentially, astronomically in business, on the business side of things. Like, we are in the process of creating 31 courses and 50 articles and about 500 different automated emails and this large undertaking of content. And it isn't just like, what do we want to talk about? Today, let's talk about hygiene. And the next day, let's talk about doing homework. It's like it all interlinks and stuff. So we need to add 3 months of building spreadsheets and like pivot tables that all like interact with each other. And for me to be able to do that and have the space in my mind to sort of fit all that and mesh it all together to an interlocking thing was impossible 2 years ago. And it's sort of like, it's a new thing for me to actually do large amounts of planning.
I've got a client and he's 45, but in 4 months, he used to talk and he'd get one bit of information and bring it, and then the next one, and he couldn't compile all of this stuff. Now he can just talk. He can just hold all these things in his head and share and keep his heart connected. And it's taken such a small amount of time, and it's really, it's quite amazing. And it's not a miracle. It's just
the body's ability to regulate itself when you let it.
Yeah, exactly. So what kind of things do you do, that like you would have had, you've improved your vagal tone. Yeah. What did you do to do that? And then also, do you have to kind of keep coming back and working on it some more? Or, you had your kidney stones. Did you have to employ techniques to get yourself kind of staying in a good state? Or does it just happen naturally now on the whole?
By that point, it had just happened naturally. There was a period of about 2 years where the anxiety would come up or the fear would come up. And essentially what I did and what I still do is I teach people how to be with it. In other words, sit down, shut up, and just be, and let your sensations happen. And the more that you do that, you stop resisting them and fighting them and trying to change them and control them and all of those other things, and you just be, the better things are. So I've gone through all the shaking and all the being, and I look like that polar bear sometimes, and like that is, I mean, every single night for about like an hour I've been doing that sort of like as I go to bed. And has changed everything. And now like the kidney stones thing was surprising because for the first time I didn't. It fully automatically caught me, and there wasn't any like, getting anxious, have to like regulate and tone down from that. It was like, it was strong enough that it was just there, on, all the time, like ready to go.
So you've been able to do that for yourself beautifully, and now you teach it to people all over the world.
Yes.
You do online work. Tell me about some changes that you can get even just doing online work, and then some of the changes that you have with your workshops.
I had one client who was really, 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 really traumatized. And the problem is that, you know how the brain sort of links up like, oh, there's the problem, when it really isn't. Like if you crash on the specific corner, every time you go back that corner, you freeze up again, even though that corner did nothing wrong. It has nothing to do with the actual fact that you crashed. So he had a whole bunch of bullying and school trauma to the point where he had to go to the hospital and be inpatient in the hospital for a while. And his brain had decided that his parents were the problem, which is very unfortunate because he was 15 and living with his parents. So it took me 3 months just to build enough trust with him to actually, because when you're saying to people who are in this state, hey, I want you to do the last thing that you want to do, essentially feel all this stuff, it takes a lot of trust to build up to that point. But when you build up that trust and when you get to that point, what happened was that I was able to have him have conversations with his family and with his parents and regulate himself to the point where he sort of really got out of defense mode and got connected to himself for the first time.
And then that translates across his whole world.
Yes. Yeah, literally everything changes. I've had people describe it as like, wow, they like, that moment where they're like looking around going, everything has changed. And now their entire world is so different now because they can actually like connect to things and people. And it's like, somebody described it, I feel like I just got an upgrade of my operating system.
It's software. That's all. It's all it is. Then how would you describe Asperger's now? You know, you start lessening the physicality of it. You start lessening the improving executive functioning, all of those things that we apply to autism and Asperger's. What do you think it is?
When you look down at the core of it, and a lot of this is conjecture at this point, but I'm working to prove it, I think that in the beginning there is some sort of disruption of the myelination on the vagus nerve and the reticular activating system, and because of that you get a twofold vagus nerve not working, and then you get you have an inability to selectively attend. You either need to absorb everything at once or nothing. So since you're like 2 or 3 at that point, you naturally choose nothing, and then you disconnect, and then your vagus nerve stops working, and then it all just sort of spirals from there, and you get Asperger's.
What has it afforded you? There's so many aspects to autism and Asperger's that are good. You know, you're confined in a body that's kind of really constrained, but it gives you a mental process that's pretty good fun as well, doesn't it?
It allows you to be removed from the culture for enough years to sort of do the equivalent of culture shock, where like if you go away from your culture for a year and you go live in completely different, like my cousin has been came back from living in Vietnam for a year. And then he comes back and is now making all these weird posts about how the U.S. is so weird and different and stuff. And it just sort of affords you a permanent third-person perspective to look at the world and go, that's stupid, why would I do that?
In that sense, do you think it's an evolutionary sequence as much as anything?
I think that, I mean, there's multiple different levels and perspectives. I would say that definitely on one level there is an order, an evolution, whatever you want to call it, to it that allows this perspective to say, guys, this type of culture that we are in isn't working. We need to do something drastically different. Like, it's so not working, it's hilarious. Like, the number 3 cause of the death in the United States is doctors. That's like saying auto mechanics are the number 3 cause of car accidents.
Yep. It's interesting to me just how prolific it is now. And so there's always a sort of this 360 thing with autism. There's never one particular point of view. But that so many people are getting diagnosed with it is, you can look at toxins, the environment and the vagus nerve and all of that. But there's an aspect of it's not all bad. Because there is ability.
It's just that a lot of people don't know how to get out of it. They get this amazing perspective, but then they get shows shut down because the culture is one of suppression and not of actually just be. And it's sort of annoying when you find out the secret to the answer, so to speak, is literally to do nothing in a specific way. You're like, really? That's it? Why didn't anybody tell me this? Of all things, this is like the simplest thing ever. You mean if I stop fighting it, it isn't a problem?
Exactly. I teach people really simple things like hand reflexology. So this is the vagus nerve, this is your spine and neck, I think, your eyes. And we just really soothe. This is all the social engagement system here. You soothe the body, you drop it down, and then they just kind of float back into themselves and go, oh. And then they're there, and they're actually more present than most people because they know that their body, they're more than their body.
Yeah, they're more in their body, and they go, wow, and then there's like no stopping them, and people are like, how are you doing this? It's like, well, I know how to connect to me. Yeah, so then they're more. All the other people, you're like, wow, literally like 99% of society is talking heads.
Yes, and it's harder to teach a neurotypical, I don't like that word, how that they're not their body. It takes a lot longer. Whereas the people
not my body. I got my marketing mentor who's totally neurotypical just to go through what Ava does, and afterwards he's like, "Oh, I have a body." I'm like, I have one to just make a video of people watching people and reacting going, I have a body, and then going, what do you mean I have a body? Of course I have a body, it's right here. And then like 2 hours later, oh, I have a body.
Yes, yeah. I've been working with a 93-year-old nun who doesn't have Asperger's, but she hasn't been very well. She's a friend. And we did all of this sort of relaxing stuff. And then because your whole head relaxes, and I said, and how do your ears feel? And she just went, I've never thought about my ears in my whole life. You know, and she went, oh, they feel like they're about to fall off. But she was just amazed because she doesn't think about her ears ever. It's really different.
But when if other people are watching this and they're like, what the hell are they talking about? What do you mean she doesn't think about her ears? Her ears are right here. You don't like look at your ears and think about hearing ever? What? And it's because it's entirely limbic communication. Like we can only say words that sort of do a horrible approximation of what's actually going on.
Yeah. But when you actually get to stay and sit in it, you have I think you upgrade your nervous system enormously when you start doing that, because you uber connect to it, don't you? You're not run by it, but then you also have, you have something extra.
Yeah. Excuse me for one moment. I'm cooking a soup and I need to check on it. I'll be right back.
No problem. So, Danny, do you want to tell me a bit about how your workshops run? You run them with Ava all the time, or?
Yeah, I run them with Ava and one other guy who's really, really good at sort of the embodied, centered, like live from your body thing. He's like a personal trainer in the same way that Gandhi was a nice guy. You know, he like trains the person. Not like just do 5 push-ups, but like do 5 push-ups. Oh, you totally weren't here right now, so go check in with yourself, get into your body, and like really be there when you're doing the push-ups. So he and Ava and I run 2-day workshops that really teach people a lot of this and a lot of the process of, like, our first hurdle is usually the parents want to fix the kids. The parents don't realize that they're having this issue, and because of that, and because they are having this issue, they are in a problem state where they're trying to fix the kid, and the kid might be actually fine, and it's just the parent's anxiety. So that can take the entirety of the 2 days. That can take, the fastest we've ever had is a half a day, depending on the group. Where we go after that is now let's actually, increase your vagal tone and actually get used to being in the body. We do a great exercise that everybody loves and everybody remembers that we just call the sticks, where we have these long wooden dowel rods. And you have one person here and one person here, and they're like going like this with their fingers. So if like this is a stick, I'm trying to find something here. Imagine that this is a stick, right? And you're going, here, actually, I have a pen. That'll be better. Okay. So if like this is the stick, you have 2 people and they're like going like this, right? And the moment you drop the stick is the very visual indicator that you have checked out. Because the moment you check out and go back into your head and stuff, you aren't with your body, and then the stick drops. So it tells people, hey, you just checked out, and you know it because the stick dropped. And so the whole workshop is sort of around noticing that you have a self and you have... It's the intro. Once a year, we do a 5-day retreat over basically in the most Pacific Northwest corner of the U.S., Whidbey Island area. Amazing, awesome, cool place in Puget Sound. And that's 5 days straight of, we are in a retreat center in the middle of the wilderness that we do a lot of embodiment and working with this and inner work and do some really, really fun stuff, like go on the ropes course and learn to actually embody what it means to trust yourself, because you're 40 feet up in the air and you have 20 people supporting you, and it's like, okay, now jump. So that's the majority of our workshops, is working with these people to really move through their blocks and move through their issues and understand that it's their issue. It's not anybody else's issue that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, there's such a thing in the autism community about being fixed. So I find it quite challenging to talk about my work sometimes, because it's such a different model to the traditional stuff. It's not about fixing people. It's about enhancing who they are. Yeah.
I always say that the difference between a therapist and a coach is that therapy in the usual model, not always, but the usual model of therapy is you're broken, let's fix you. And the usual model of coaching and mentoring and support is usually, you're fine just the way you are, but how can I help you? Let's make you more awesome.
Two things. Tell me about some outcomes that you've found, from working on your workshops with people. And also, if people are on medication, do you find that a barrier? Do you find it more difficult to work with people? Do you find that it isn't, but they generally start to be able to come off their medication once they start to be able to self-regulate?
Yeah, I was able to come off my medication, but let me talk about the first thing. What I usually find is it's amusing that we always have people that are just there for their boyfriend, or they're there for their son, or they're there for whatever, and they're the ones that end up getting all the benefit. They're like, I was just here. Like, we had one girl the last time we were in San Francisco who was just there for their boyfriend to learn more about Aspergers, because, that would be nice, and he has Aspergers. But then, like, all of her anxieties and trauma issues start coming up, and we're all working with her, and there's a great picture in and that we have of it, and now she's like working on her stuff and crying, and oh my God, I didn't think that this would be a thing. Her testimonial is actually on our website, and it says, yeah, I was coming here for somebody else, but I learned so much for myself. And that's usually what I find in the workshops, is that it's like, the kids are cool. The kids sort of absorb it, and we get the news afterwards, like 6 months later, that like everything has changed for them. Or like one time when we went to Boston, the kid was like, next day had a giant meltdown, and the mom wrote this long email to us saying he had a meltdown, but then he just decided to sit with it, and he said it was the most horrible thing that he's ever done, but then it felt a lot better afterwards. It's like, sounds about right. and
how much?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then as far as the meds go, I find that, like, in general, like, I don't know of any medication in the world that actually cures anything. So especially all the psych meds, they're Band-Aids. And using that philosophy, when you get rid of the wound, you don't need the Band-Aid anymore. Like in my own life, once I discovered this work and went through it, I didn't need to take anxiety meds anymore, because I was fine.
I'm on Twitter quite a lot now, and there's a lot of people who get really angry about, like, you call it a wound or you heal. They really rally against that line of thinking.
And it means that they're broken, or there's something morally wrong with them. It's like, the way I explain to it with people is like, if you have a paper cut on your arm, right? It's annoying, but how do you heal it? You don't injure it again. You sort of protect it and you wait. Same thing is happening internally. One of your nerves is physically damaged in the same way that you would have a paper cut, and the way to heal it is the same way you'd heal a paper cut. You don't re-injure it. You give it some space and you wait. It has nothing to do with a moral failing on your part. There's literally just the same as you have a cut on your arm, you have a cut on your nerve, that it is wounded. We obviously can't see that because it's inside of you, but if we were to dissect you and go look at it, we would actually see there is a physically wounded nerve there.
And you know what I mean as well with the whole sort of neurotribes, that thing where it's a normal, and it's a part of a human condition, and we all sit on this thing and run up and down the ladder, but there's that thing of, well, we've had it forever and it's just a thing, and it's a different human. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's like a lot of people, this is where you get into the weird, like, my wound is my dysfunction or my disability, whatever you want to call it, is my identity now, because it's like, you get into the argument of, like, how, I mean, I'm trying to think of something that really equates. It's almost as if, like, people that start having cancer go like, well, cancer's just a part of me. And it's like, yeah, it may give you some awesome perspectives and you can still be you, but how about you be you without the cancer? Like, wouldn't you like to still be you, but not freaking out every single 5 minutes? Wouldn't that be nice?
Exactly.
And I think that it fundamentally changes them. And the funny thing is the only part it fundamentally changes is the you freaking out every 5 minutes part. It doesn't change who you are at all. Now, then you get into the weird discussions of, would I be the same person that I am today if my vagus nerve was healed or wasn't injured in the first place when I was, like, 2 years old? Probably not. But at the same time, I have no idea who I would be. So I can't say that one is better than the other because that didn't happen. So I can't say that, oh, well, if you don't heal their vagus nerve until they're 20, then they get an awesome perspective. In my opinion, that's like saying, well, they have cancer and it's not going to kill them, but they're going to cause debilitating pain for 20 years, but then we'll cure it. It's like, what? If they're in pain, we know a very, very easy, in my opinion, the easiest way to resolve their pain, literally just stop fighting it. And yet we aren't going to do that. We're just going to let them be totally disconnected and in pain. In my opinion, why wouldn't you help them be in less pain?
It's why I got so excited when I saw your work, because people are in a lot of pain and all the physicality of autism just doesn't get addressed in the traditional therapies. You just have...
What physicality of autism? It's an executive function and social skills deficit. What does that have to do with your arm? It's like, well, it's actually only an executive function and social skills deficit because you're holding all the cortisol in your arm and that's shutting down your... So... Yeah.
I've got to go. Do you know Jenga, that game where you layer blocks? In a year, his hands were so shaky, and now he can play Jenga. His eyes are working better. He can pull blocks out. He can work out where it goes. Like everything, I was stunned at just how steady his hands were.
It always amazes me when I, help people through this, and they're like, "That's it." I'm like, "Yeah, just do that again and again and again." And it's funny because when we do video game nights and stuff, the place that we have it in is so safe and welcoming, just with the energies, and we like diffuse lavender into the room, and it's the whole thing, that some of the kids start melting down because it is so safe, and now their body is releasing for the first time ever, and the parents are like, "What is going on?" And so I sort of need to walk them through the entire process of let him. This is a good thing. Dude, you know what's up. Keep going. Awesome. And yet it's sort of interesting. We're working on eventually building a retreat center, and that's going to be one of the most triggering places to people because it's going to be so safe as soon as you walk in the door that immediately your body's going to be like, time to get it all out. And just let's shake. And what's going on? Everything's worse now. That's the thing. You really have to integrate that cognition and that body stuff, don't you? It can be quite overwhelming. Oh, I'm freaking out. Oh, this is actually a good thing. Let me just let myself.
So tell me, you started how long ago? And then, you've developed to this point and you're about to have a retreat. How long's that whole process been and how much fun was it? Since 2012. It's been a lot of hard days, a lot of fun. I get to play with all the toys now. We have an awesome video studio and a seminar space with all the things, and it's an awesome thing to do. We still got a lot of work to do though, but it's fun. It's exhaustive at times. I've spent literally all day today combing over marketing videos and designing our sort of new marketing paradigm, but it's a lot of work, but it's also really fun. I get to talk to cool people and do really, really awesome work with people. Yeah, it's brave and beautiful, and you wouldn't be doing anything else. No, I love doing this. One of my favorite things to do is to take ideas from completely outside sort of the realms of autism, sort of like the Polyvagal Theory, but even more obscure stuff that is nothing to do with that, and sort of bring it in. Happens to just be here. This book, The Timeless Way of Building by Christopher Alexander. It's about architecture, but it's totally not about architecture, because it's actually about how the built environment affects us. And I swear to you that there is a certain point. Let me see if I can find this, because I took a picture of this and sent it to Dave a few months ago. There's a part of the book where they are literally talking about how being in rooms that are configured differently can put you into defense mode, because human beings naturally want to be by the window, right? We want to look out and observe things. But if the sitting area is sort of in the middle of the room and not by the window, then you have this weird cognitive dissonance going on. If you want to be by the people because you want to talk to the people, but at the same time,
even though you're by the people, you aren't by the window, so you get this weird cognitive dissonance thing happening, and it suddenly puts you into defense mode.
That's fascinating.
So, yeah, it gets really, really interesting when I sort of take from entirely different paradigms and look at how does, like, the built environment actually put you into defense mode. Or how does this other thing put you into defense mode?
And then you interface it and you upgrade your awareness so that you're constantly more and more able to cope with the situation when it's not quite right.
Yeah.
Have you seen a book by Steven Pinker called The Way the Mind Works?
I have not.
It's lovely because it goes into how the eyes operate, how the ears operate, but in terms of it being software. So it's the same thing again, you're looking at how your eyes and your whole system will compute how big that banana is to the table, to the light bulb, and you're moving through the world.
Very simple things that are like, why am I not able to determine the size of a banana when everybody else seems to be, so what's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me. Which brings me to a quote from that book. And it's weird because it totally doesn't sound like an architecture book, but it's a book on architecture and building. It says, there's a myth, sometimes widespread, that the person need only do inner work in order to be alive like this. The man is entirely responsible for his own problems, that to cure himself, he need only change himself. This teaching has some value since it is so easy for man to imagine his problems are caused by others, but it is one-sided mistaken view which also maintains the arrogance of the belief that the individual is self-sufficient and not dependent on, in any essential way on his surroundings. So, one of my favorite things, again, is sort of bringing in weird, obscure areas of, like, nobody would ever think that a book on architecture could actually help people with Asperger's, but it totally does, and it totally can, because there's a large section on how, basically, architectural oppression, like, how being in certain spaces that are not designed to be in harmony with the natural forces of us, like wanting to go toward the window or sit near a nook or like things like that, that end up sort of causing this subtle, very unnoticed defense mode. Because
we are a physicality.
Yeah.
You know, and we're not just a head that's thinking all the time. We're actually a whole body that's responding.
Yeah. And yet, you know, thank you, Descartes. I think, therefore I am. So, and there's our world right now.
Yeah, and it's true, but it's not. It's not everything. You got a body.
Whoa. It's not. I really like exploring that sort of theme about like the separation versus the connection, because there's some really, really good writings on that. Like especially Charles Eisenstein is one of my favorite authors on that. I'm going to a retreat by him next week. Where he just talks about like some really amazing stuff about how the fundamental idea that we are separate from our feelings, separate from our environment, and that we can be fully independent. And as I was reading from that quote, unable to like, you don't need to be a part of the situation. You want to be independent rather than being interdependent. And then what that leads to is I have a feeling, let me separate from it. Oops, now you've totally screwed yourself up because now your vagus nerve is even worse.
And essentially we need people. And it comes back to what's wrong with the world, doesn't it? You know, it's time to get holistic and wholesome again.
Yeah, and so what I think a lot of people with Asperger's struggle with is that they see this, they see all of this, and they feel all of this, but they feel powerless to change it because whenever they try and do some executive functioning task, like is generally required whenever you're doing mass scale change, they just utterly fall flat on their face and can't. So they're stuck feeling helpless.
But after people have worked with you and maybe, you know, you check in with them a year or two later, are they doing quite gorgeous things? I mean, you don't have to be Superman, but you do actually start generating quite nicely for the whole world, not just for yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. We had one lady, one of the first people we ever helped, who was living in her parents' basement, and they converted it into a little mini apartment because they lost hope that she was ever going to live on her own. I worked with her for literally like 3 hours. And then she starts going, when I move out, when I get my own apartment. They get her own apartment, and now she's like working with kids, young like preschool kids, and living on her own and living her own life. And that's what she does. And the parents are going, how? Like, this is a thing. And it's just, when you learn this and when you really truly get it, you just get unlocked.
And you blossom.
Yeah. And then it's just everything sort of easily, effortlessly unfolds from there.
Yeah.
Whereas before, no matter how hard you try, you couldn't get anywhere.
And the trick is to start making it true. It is true, and you can see with the work you're doing. And there's different people in various ways working around the world like this, but there's such a staunch model that says it's not real. And then you're sort of chipping away at that.
The model says that ABA is the way to go, but the thing is that in order to change the model, you need to look at it holistically, because the model is sort of based off of the last 12,000 years of human history, beginning with, oh, agriculture, we can actually make nature do what we want it to instead of just letting nature happen. And then you trace it all the way to, well, you have a feeling and let's separate that and let's medicate you and blah, blah, blah. And it's the paradigm of control. And so you sort of need to get out completely outside of that paradigm of control, which is why you see any people that sort of get this are the ones that are also into holistic medicine and organic food and like nonviolent communication and intentional living and all those sort of similar concepts. Because once you sort of understand, oh, you mean control is stupid and it actually causes nothing but pain, when you let that go, like the new world emerges right in front of your eyes.
It's there.
Yeah. And then other people look at you like, are you crazy? And I'm like, no, like, you don't see this? Like, guys. And then, so everybody with Asperger's is saying, you don't see this? And everybody's just beating them down and saying, no, you're the one with the problem. Because if you, like, and that's what I think a lot of these mental illnesses are, especially things like, what am I trying to say? It's demand avoidance and like oppositional defiant and things like that, or just somebody that's going, I refuse to participate in this old world, and people are saying, well, you're defiant now. It's like, depends on how you look at it, but I guess, sure, yeah.
It's more than just defiant though, because you're actually looking at something else that is real.
Yeah, and people are saying, no, that isn't, like, you guys don't see that? They're like, there's nothing there. No, there is something there. There's nothing there. You're crazy. It's like...
And you don't die if you lose your control.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, if you drop everything and leave it, and it's very much going to sort of the Buddhist or the old traditions of abstract and nothingness, but you leave it all behind, you kind of just float in and everything's actually nicer.
Yeah. And so to change one thing is to sort of change all the things. And so until somebody's ready to let go of the entire old paradigm and sort of live in that bridge balance between the old and the new, then you can say, be with it, be with it, be with it, be with it, and connect themselves, and they'll be good and they'll be fine. But then eventually they're going to get sort of drawn back into the culture of control. Which is why what I find is that once I get somebody out of defense mode, they're fine until they go back into their family and their culture, and then slowly everything becomes horrid again. Because you need to change the entire culture in which they live.
I think people end up living a little separately for a while, don't they? Just so they can kind of reorient and get some strength.
Yeah, and then what the thing is it's like, once you get enough vagal tone, then when people say, no, this is the way it is, you just say, no, back off. I have my own boundaries, and you're able to set them now. It's like when you are on a detox diet, like, oh, you know, I'm not eating spicy things for a month, as an example, right? It's not like don't eat spicy things forever. It's like you totally overdid it on the spicy things. You need to take a while off for your gut to sort of heal and get back to normal. And then you can enjoy a moderate amount of spicy things for the rest of your life, assuming you don't overdo it again.
We're talking kidney stones here?
No, I'm just talking in general. Kidney stones would be spinach and almonds. So.
Sorry, I went off track. I just thought it'd be kidney stone. No, lost it totally. Sorry.
I think the big frustration is that this isn't something that can be delivered in a logical mechanism. You can talk about this all day long, but until you have people actually experience it, then they don't have any idea what you're saying. And so because of that, it's very, very hard to shift people. I've had to come up with all sorts of models and graphs to describe, hey, you're doing this, do this other thing. And sort of as a side effect of that is be with your sensations. And then they go, oh, why didn't anybody tell me? And then they're totally on board and they want to spread the message well, and you get more and more and more people on board. And I mean, in the autism world, the people that like have clout, I can count them all on one hand, but they're starting to be there. It's starting to take shape.
It'll snowball, I think, at some point because you provide proof.
Yeah.
So you know, the more proof there is, they kind of what it, and these things are coming together. The holistic medicine is coming together. So it'll just sort of kind of go there, won't it? And it's not going to be.
And the thing is that we're eventually working on providing that proof, because the good news is we have a quantifiable metric for all this stuff. We can measure anybody's heart rate variability very easily, right? You just stick a little monitor on their earlobe or on their finger or whatever and measure their pulse, like, and then through that you're good. And you can totally watch on like an iPhone, like with the inner balance sensor by HeartMath, you can totally just watch their heart rate variability go up and down. And like, look, as you hold your breath and your vagus nerve stops working, watch as your heart rate variability drops, and it's very easily apparent.
But you can also do, you know, 2 years later, you go through the same autism test. Yeah, and I think those measures will be significantly different. They just have to be, don't they?
Yeah. And then people go, what do you do? And it's like, the secret is I didn't really do anything. I just sort of was here.
Yeah. But you don't do very much if you leave someone in a really high stress state and then teach them to tie their shoelaces.
Yeah.
Or eye contact. You're
doing because they aren't going to listen, first of all, and you're going to like, I heard a quote the other day that I thought was brilliant. It's like, the only reason why school takes as long as it does to teach all these kids these things is because they don't want to hear it, and we literally need to ram it down their throats. Like, in alternate schooling models like the Sudbury School, there was a group of 12-year-olds that decided they just wanted to learn math, so they went through the entire 1st through 6th grade math curriculum in 20 working hours. Because they wanted to. So the problem is it's sort of the same thing. It's like these kids are neither ready nor willing to learn how to tie their shoes or shake hands. So you need to spend 200 hours of therapy just to get them to rote memorize it.
Yeah, yeah. But what you're not doing is appreciating the beauty of their mind and their awareness and using that. Because the minute you do, you have this incredible brain that is super highway.
Yeah. That is able to do all of these incredible things, and otherwise it's like, great, you have somebody that like, you can totally notice the person who's, you know, been through ABA and has sort of been traumatized because of the, hi, nice to meet you, okay, that's, and they're like, they're doing the things, but they're doing it totally, you could tell, because they're scared shitless out of their mind that anybody's gonna like come down on them and like say something, and that's no way to live.
No, there's no grace and there's no beauty, and people can't see you. Although all you are is that, and your entire actual world is still unavailable. Yeah. Whereas you get the vagal system calm or toned, they just flow through, and then the world has this beautiful person instead. It's
like, so literally everything, like you wake up one day and it's raining and you're excited that it's raining and you're going, why am I excited that it's raining? I've never been excited that it's raining before, but your vagal tone's working and suddenly life is beautiful. And you look at this state, like I look at the same exact thing out my window every single day. It's very exciting. It's a brick building, right? It's like, it's not that exciting. But on days when my vagal tone is good, it's like a beautiful brick building. And on days where I have low vagal tone, it's a horrible brick building and it's ugly.
Yeah. Danny Raede, thank you very much.
You are very, very welcome.
So excited with your work. I think the world is all the better for you being in it and your beautiful business. let's talk again sometime soon. And I want to come and do a workshop with you sometime. I think that'll be really fun.
I would absolutely love to do that. I've been meaning, like, I want to get down to Australia. The problem is just that finances, like, you know, flight and then doing all the workshops, it adds up quickly.
Yeah.
So
yeah. However, we should look at it sometime, because I think there's enough people here that would be more than excited if you came to visit.
Yeah, and then we could sort of do something together. I would love to work with you and do some things, because I think that together we can really create some epic change.
Exactly. Even doing this is a very good start, because it just builds communication and other people get to see, and it becomes real again. So there's many ways to kind of play with that. But no, I'll come find you if you don't come here. That's easy.
All right, sounds good.
Take care. Talk to you soon. Right. Thank you for listening to the Holly Bridges podcast. That was Danny Raede from the Asperger Experts. See you soon.